My name's Sasha P, and I'm joined by a fantastic individual, an Olyroos, who represented our country, none other than the great Sydney Olympic and Newcastle United steward, Mr. Peter Tsekenis. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks, Sash, mate. How are you?
Very good, sir. So, Peter, tell us, how did you fall in love with our great game?
Mate, my dad was a big football fanatic. He didn't really play the game, but an immigrant coming to this country, he and his mates used to go and watch his beloved Sydney Olympic. And when I was 5 years old, he took me down to the park in my local club, Gladstone United, and wearing my sandals. A bunch of kids were playing and had a chat with the coach, and he said, "You want to have a run?" And off I went. And that's really when. And I remember that like it was yesterday, to be honest. That was one of the moments that I really remember training with my sandals. And I think from that point on, mate, it was, I fell in love with the game.
So being half Hellenic, I can sympathise. Did you have socks on or socks off?
Socks off.
Socks off. Okay, all right.
Socks came later.
So fantastic. So who are the greatest influences? Obviously, your father being a migrant to this country. You're born here, not too dissimilar to first generation Australian migrants. The ethos of new migrants into the country and that connection to football. That love of the park. Your father being a strong influence in that makeup in your sporting life.
Yeah, I think he had that passion, like his mates and everyone around him did when they came here. He wasn't one of those who would push. He just introduced me to sport. I think it was more so that I was active, more than he wanted his son to be a footballer, because these days that's a little bit different. But yeah, he just put me there, and I just ran with it, and he just supported me through the whole lot. And he throughout my career, he supported me for the love of the game, and that's what it was. It was football. Even school took a back seat at most times, and I got myself in trouble. But that's really how it began, and I was supported from my family the whole way through.
And as a young boy, you play with St George, and I believe Mark Babbage was also part of that junior setup there.
So Mark Babbage was in my under-10s team at St George Olympic. Yeah, and Peter Sarakakis, the general as they call him in Sydney, he was our coach. So we both played in that under-10s team, St George Olympic. I remember it quite well. Where did you gravitate to on the pitch? Were you always on the ball? Or where did you? I just wanted to be where the ball was. I just ran everywhere. I had great engines. That was part of my game. Loved to tackle, loved to engage, and just was everywhere basically. So really, from anywhere from the middle of the park to the back line is where I always played. I never played as a striker. I never considered myself as a striker. My dad tried to get me to shoot more or go forward more, but I was a very disciplined player, and the coaches, and the reason why I played for so long, obviously there was better players, but I had the discipline to carry out instructions and be where I needed to be at that time, and that sort of carried me through my whole career, to be honest.
And in your middle teens, you made state representative sides. Obviously, that gives you a taste of sort of gravitating to where the echelon of football is, playing for New South Wales. Describe to me do you realise sort of as a 15 or 16-year-old that you're coming up a slight next level? You might have regional representative sides where you get picked, and then you make a state team. Does that, where you think, okay, I'm getting a bit of a look in here?
The honest truth is no, I didn't even think that way. I was doing what I loved, and I enjoyed it. I never had a goal. I used to dream. I mean, I'll give you this story and I'll tell many people. We used to have a restaurant in Dulwich Hill in Sydney. And in the day when it was closed, I used to, and there was tables and chairs, I used to dribble around the chairs and score goals and pretend I won trophies, and I'd be, serenading the crowd that wasn't there. I used to dream a lot. It wasn't a goal, but I used to dream of me being in that position. And that's why I had no pressure on me or anyone else to actually, or a timeline to be anywhere at any particular time. And this is what I try to share to today's players, where they put too much pressure on themselves to be anywhere. In the 11s, I made the rep team, and that was great, and I enjoyed it. I missed out on the 13s and 14 state team. One, I had a back issue with my growing pains at 14, 13. I wasn't good enough. I was very disappointed at 14 that I didn't make it. That hurt. That was one of my setbacks. And then the 15s, that's where it really kicked off for me, and making that state team in the under 15s.
This is a very interesting point where you're free, and the power of positive manifestation, where I think now the pressure of some players, the beautiful innocence of a young boy dreaming, okay, where you actually then go on to only a few years later be on some of the biggest, playing the biggest in front of the biggest crowds in the world. This is a beautiful story whereby I think other players could watch this and also gain sort of some reference, and just be free and love the game and put your 100% effort into it. Fantastic story. I'm sure I'd love to be a fly on the wall watching a young Peter Tsekenis dribble in your family's. Any tables or chairs broken?
My sister actually saw me one day hiding behind the bar, and she actually reminds me of it, to be honest. Plenty of plates broken. Don't worry about that.
Fantastic. And so you carry on, and there's a young, I think back in the day, a young Colt side at St. George, headed up by Frank Arrock, who just recently passed. What were your memories of, I believe Richie Allegich and Frank were running that team at the time. What were your memories of how Frank would sort of try and coach young players in order to set them up for success?
Yeah, so the apprenticeship came along when I was in the St. George Junior or setup. They brought up this concept where they had a trial of 200, 300 odd kids that turned up to just outside St. George Stadium, which is a stadium that I used to go to watch Sydney Olympics. So it was a special place, and I went there with no expectations. I enjoyed the game again. I went there and did my stuff with no pressure, and cut after cut, I was still there. And eventually they cut it down to 12 apprentices, and I was one of them. I was fortunate to be one of them. And look, that was the first sort of taste of being a professional footballer, because we did train anywhere from 5 to 10 sessions in the week, before school and after school. So we made the commitment, and my family supported me by taking me, because I obviously didn't have a license at that time. And early in the morning, go and have my session, and then in the evening, go and have another session. He used to, he taught us the old school way, where we had to earn our stripes. We were the apprentices to the first team. We used to, after the weekend's game, we used to walk on the pitch with him and replace all divots on the main pitch. Those sort of things that made it special, and just being around, Frank Arrock and Richard Allegich, who were all big names in the game at the time, and being part of that, earning $10 a week or whatever they were paying us to be part of it. It was a special moment, and that was my first taste to training and feeling like a pro.
It's interesting now where you look at first team setups now, where you go and the training kit's laid out. All you need to do is bring your boots and your shin pads, right, and everything else is laid out, right. And as an apprentice, you're out there fixing potholes. Was Frank the one that sort of say, "Okay, boys, here's a pothole, there's a pothole," or was he out there also?
He was with us. He was with us, doing what he wanted us to do. So he was there. That's what it meant to him. That's what the setup meant to him. We had a gear steward called Mishi. So who used to do everything. That was the first sort of exposure that I got of professional football, and it was quite professional for its time. Mishi used to be a full-time gear steward that lived on the premises, and he ran everything. So he lived under the grandstand. A lot of people know the guy, and everything was done. We had to help him. We learnt what it meant, and to appreciate what it's all about. And Frank was tough, but he also had this aura about him where he got the best out of you.
So you got an opportunity to play first team football before you were old enough to vote, and so as a 17-year-old, you debuted for St. George. You remember your first game?
Yeah, I do. I remember we had a game with the apprentices at St. George Stadium, and I got dragged, and I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy. I didn't know why, because I never had been dragged at the time, and I was playing quite well, I thought. And he's pulled me aside and he said, "Call your dad, get ready, because you're on the bench for first grade." I remember it very well. I rang my dad, and the excitement through the whole family was unbelievable. I sat on the bench. I remember it was against South Melbourne. And I came on and I made some really good runs that surprised myself going forward across the ball. We ended up winning the game, which was great. And the first session back, I remember after that week, he pulled me into training, into the change room, when the first grade players were already in there. And he called for me to come and join him in the first grade change room. And he said, "Welcome to the circus." And that was basically the first time, and when I was accepted into that first team change room as a senior player, or someone who was considered a first grade player at that time. I was barely 17.
And the interesting game of football, you carried on in the circus for many, many years to come. So it was unfortunate that St. George was relegated that year.
Yes.
And obviously, we think of the demise now of that organisation since, obviously a great Australian club. But that also gave you an opportunity to travel not too far to Olympic, and probably reconnect with your Hellenic heritage, and get a chance to be that one of those boys of the 11 that only a few years earlier you got to watch those players play. So talk to me about the feeling within the family about when that opportunity came up to go across to Olympic, and what did that mean to yourself and obviously to your extended family?
Well, I was a kid going to school and used to go to school talking about, the players, of the caliber of, Gary Meyer in goals, who was there for, since I was a young boy, Robbie Ironside at the time, Andrew Burnell, all these guys, Peter Catholis, all these guys I used to, watch and talk about and try to emulate as a young boy. And being thrusted into that arena and being in the same change room was surreal. Definitely surreal. I remember there was definitely excitement, numbness, disbelief, trying to pinch yourself. It's just something that it's surreal, right? And my family, they were very excited, I know, but they were very conservative in how they showed it, if that makes sense. Kept me grounded, obviously proud, as you would be, but didn't get carried away with it, and kept me really grounded. And it was just business as usual for them, to be honest, which was looking back on it, which was really good because it did keep me grounded at the time.
The one question I wanted to ask you, because you were there for many, many years, but I don't know if that time, your time in Olympic, you outlasted many, many coaches. So it was Peter Raskopoulos.
Yes. One.
The first.
It wasn't the first one, no. Mick Hickman was the first. Yeah, when I first got there, I don't think I got any minutes, to be honest, in the first team. I was a squad player, one of the young ones coming through, up and comers, which I get, and I was playing in the youth team, and they had a good squad. They had a really good squad. They had just won a championship.
Yeah,
one of the leading clubs. And there was no expectation for me to play, nor was I upset. I was just glad to be there, and appreciated it, and just went with the flow at the time. And then the first real chance I got was when Peter Raskopoulos turned up. And I'll give you the story. When I did start my first game, my sister was getting married. Yeah, and we sat down, and my sister goes, "You got to go. Come to the church, miss the photos, and then come to the reception when you're done." And so that was, and that's why I have a hard time when players tell me they got functions on or anything, birthdays or anniversaries. I have a hard time trying to explain to them that it means nothing to me.
Wow. Talk about commitment. The day of your sister's wedding, you're out there lacing the boots. Yeah. Did you get the result that day?
Yeah, I think we did win. I can't remember that well, but I believe we did.
All right.
I think we beat Adelaide City at St George Stadium at that time.
Wow. So full on. But the one thing, obviously, Olympics had success under just before you get there, and then in your time. So we go Hickman, Raskopoulos, Mariani, Samani, Gary Meyer, David Ratcliffe, David Mitchell, and then Branko Kalina. I think that's the order, right?
You've done well.
Of the coaches in your time at Olympic. That's a tumultuous time, okay? If you're changing over...
in 9 years, I was there for 9 years.
Yeah. Exactly. I think I've said 8 names, or 9 names. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in...
You might have missed one, to be honest.
Sorry?
You might have missed one.
Okay. So now talk to me then what is happening in the background of Olympic, because you guys had a decent side, always had sort of decent players. Okay. But it's and being obviously half Hellenic, I understand this, when the results aren't happening on the pitch, okay, who goes? The man at the top. What was that feeling like? I mean, year after year, you start another preseason and there's a different voice there at the front of the change room.
Look, it's tough. It's tough. When there's no stability, when there's not one, it doesn't matter who it is, not one person building something and given time to build something, it's very difficult. And, you look at some of the best coaches in the world, they took time for them to build things. Sir Alex Ferguson didn't, hit the ground running. That's a great example. I mean, I know it's Sir Alex Ferguson, but now in hindsight, we can talk about it. But, a lot of these guys, I learned, a lot from every single, I was probably fortunate that I had all these coaches, the positive side of things, because I learned a lot, not only when I was playing, but now that I'm coaching, I reflect and I see what worked and what didn't work, and just sort of mold it all together. If I only had one or two coaches in my career, I wouldn't have that luxury of being able to get all that information.
I mean, you think about like a Peter Raskopoulos who played for our country, or Bertie Mariani, who had fantastic success at the club that you're now at. You know, if you could touch on a couple of the characteristics of those things that you learned, what is it, something that any one of those names that you thought, okay, I'm going to take that one aspect of their sort of philosophy or mentality, or and say, okay, that also collides with my spirit?
I forget on the park in terms of ideas, and because things have evolved, right? And I can't really reflect on that because those coaches, some of them evolved as well, in regards to what they believe in on the park. I think the most important thing was understanding the mental side of the game in regards to player management, understanding that any decision you make, or how it affects each person within the environment, and you cannot have a blanket rule for you can't treat every single player exactly the same. Every player has, different issues maybe off the park. Understanding that player, what makes him tick, all that sort of stuff. I saw coaches who did that really well, and I saw coaches that did that terribly.
Yeah. So, who for you was the best man manager out of that group?
Look, Tommy Samani, I was a big fan of. I still have a coffee with him now in Brighton now and again. I was a big fan of his in regards to how his temperament was. His knowledge of football is, we take away the knowledge of football from every coach, right? Because that's opinion based. But in regards to making you feel good and getting the best out of you, him and Les Scheinflug, who in the national teams, and Eddie Thompson, they were the guys that really, really got the best out of me.
So obviously, probably no greater disciplinarian that he expected as a standard. Just a simple reference for what it is that you called him. Is that something that you espouse today in your thinking?
No, I'm not that I don't go that far. Mind you, I still call Les Scheinflug boss. He comes to our games at Marconi, so he's a regular visitor there. I still call him boss because I still have that element of respect for him and what he did for me. So for me, that would never change. But I don't expect people to call me boss. But look, I try to find a balance of, having a good relationship, be able to talk to players, and also them understanding that when they cross the line, that I have a job to do, and they understand that I won't tolerate certain things. And you set out your rules, your expectations, and you stick by them, and you're consistent in that message. Then usually you don't have a problem.
Yeah, those early days at Olympic where you had a Bernal and an Ironside, I couldn't think of any stronger tough men. And you were also pretty tough yourself on the park. And I'm sure those training nights of a weeknight would have been, hell on occasion. So did they sort of step up a level for you on how much or how sort of aggressive you would be at training?
I tell this story all the time, and I've taken it into my coaching regime where when young blokes come in, I get the older guys to test them. I want to see what they're made of. Are they going to sit there and cry? Are they going to get up and dust themselves and go again? And I just want to see the reaction, because being a talent, a kid coming into a senior environment, that's the part of his development that needs to be fine-tuned, because the talent's there. It just the rest of it, the mental toughness and the rest of it. I'm a little bit old school, but I've also evolved into the new style and understand that the society's changed. But I still believe that you have to have that mental toughness if you want to play at a high level playing football. Andrew Burnell and Robbie Ironside, I bounced off him like that. That was my baptism to football, and unknown to me, my attitude when that happened was, I'm not going to say boo. I'm just going to get up and go again. And I've spoken to these guys later down the track, and they told me they were testing me, and they told me they respected that I didn't bark back, and I just got up, dusted myself, and went on again. And that's the sort of thing that I look for when I'm coaching, because I experienced it myself.
So that's one quality that I thought you had in your game. And then there was another side for you, because you had this mix of aggressiveness, and you would want to play on one leg if that sort of meant it. You were always, regardless of how injured you were, or you were always willing to sort of push your body to the nth degree. But you also could play. And so then what you also came across some individuals like Ned Zelic and Peter Katholis, who you mentioned, and Jimmy Patikash, who had this flair. So you had a good combination of being tough and an engine, but also this element of having a flair. Maybe not to their level, and not to be disrespectful, but you had a really nice combination of both of these two attributes that made you the fine player that you were. So talk to me about these individuals at training. So like a Katholis or a Zelic or a Patikash.
It's a good point. And this is, and I'm going to be very frank here. I wasn't the best players in the world. And this is what I tell young players. But what I had was resilience. I believed every knockback I got, I didn't listen to outside noise. I loved what I did. I pushed myself. I worked hard. I was disciplined. And things just fell for me. And in football, and even now as a coach, I recognize that in a team, you have to have a balance. You cannot have 11 Peter Tsekenises or 11 Peter Katholises or 11 Patikases. You will not win a game. And that's all due respect to all of us. Yes, these guys, that I played with Branko Milosevic, I played with Marisic, I played with Milan Blagojevic. I played with guys that could do things that I never could, but we complemented each other, because they couldn't run all day like I could. They couldn't anticipate or tackle or win the ball like I could. I couldn't shoot from 30 meters. They could. So, but you needed players who are going to do certain things and complement players around them. And that that model and that belief, I've transferred it into my coaching. These days, I just believe, and this is no disrespect to anyone, but just my observation is that all players seem to have the same attributes now. They're all very similar. That's sort of my observation at the moment, which back then, you look at our young Socceroo team, we had players like Kevin Muscat, you had Craig Moore, you had Ante Milicic, Paul Agostino, Carboni. All of them had something different to offer.
I would agree with that. We're probably along a path of task execution, and so if you can do around the world, it defines that you're evolved as a player. But what makes players sort of unique is that X factor of a Kevin Muscat being a hard man at the back, okay? And you need one of those in your team, right? So it's probably a very good point of that we can touch on about allowing individuals to flourish whatever their X factor is on the park, whether it's their engine or their ability to be one-on-one with a player, or their shooting prowess, or their ability to be a hard man at the back.
Correct.
Fantastic words of wisdom. So who did you room? You spent a lot of years at Olympic. Who was your biggest roomie?
I think Norm Tamo was probably one that I sort of roomed with. We're a similar vintage. We always seemed to room together. I remember Vince Estavillo. Did you name him, Vince Estavillo, in that coaching? Yeah. Yeah, we came back from national team duty and he said, look, boys, you need a rest, have 2 weeks off. And me and Norm went to Queensland and spent a couple of weeks away from football. So a lot of the things I did while I was Olympic, rooming or any activities with Norm Tame, usually. George Soros, when eventually he was there, which we're still great mates. Those sort of guys that I used to room with and remembered vividly, yeah.
And so in your time at Olympic, is there any moments that you think, oh, wow, they stick in the mind as great memories or games that you played there? What's something that sort of comes to mind?
Oh, look, there was a lot of moments. There was some cup games that we played, some semi-finals, Parramatta Stadium, I remember, against Marconi. We didn't get the result, but just big moments. There was, a lot of it's a blur. A lot of my great memories are in the national team, to be honest. And every game for me playing for Olympic was a big game for me. Walking out, especially when I was honoured to become the captain, because I captained the team for 3 years. He's a boy that supported the club. His dad used to take him on his shoulders to watch games. My dad lost me at a game, by the way, once. I remember that well. He found me at Pratton Park. I was at Pratton Park when they had the Sydney City sort of misdemeanor. Yep. I remember that well. So wow. Here I am in the middle of the park with the captain's armband in front of a crowd. You can understand that every game for me playing for Sydney Olympic was massive, every single time.
And the obviously by the time you captain, you went through the sort of the grid of representing an Australian team. But what was the message that you gave to the boys in the tunnel or out on the park? What was the sort of overarching message for them to give their best? Because you always did. How did you instill that?
Back then it was all about playing for the people that put faith in us. The supporters who paid to be there, our families who come to watch, the jersey that we're playing for. It was never about our individual needs. It was never about money. It was never about the selfishness. And every player I played with back in my day, very rarely were they selfish. We played with passion. We never smiled at anyone if we lost the game. You couldn't talk to us for 3 days. Now, these days, you see teams and players, they smile after a game. I mean, Branko Chilena was, he would come down on anyone after a game if they lost, and so he should. Coming from that era, I have difficulties when I see that these days. But in my team, as I coach, that wouldn't happen.
So the Instagram and selfies after a game, after a loss, a lot to be said on how society has changed. So obviously all good things come to an end and you end up leaving Olympic. But you get to jump in the car. I take it you jumped in the car. You were one of those boys that sort of commuted up to Newcastle. And there was a few of you that did that. Were you guys in a carpool?
Yes. So we met on the end of, or the beginning of the freeway at Servos. The club, who were Newcastle Breakers at the time, but changed. I didn't get to play for the Breakers because in the pre-season it changed to United.
Yeah.
They gave us a combi van, some sort of van, and Johnny Bonavoglia was the driver. Andy Harper, Bob Catlin, Chris Zoricic, from memory. There might have been a couple others. But we used to meet there and we used to have turns at driving up and down the freeway. That was for the first year. The second year, the club made a decision that whoever was going to play for the club needed to reside in the area. Fortunately enough for me, I had a family home in Port Stephens. which qualified as an area.
Yes.
So I utilised that, but I still, I'd stay up there 2 or 3 days and come down there for a couple of days.
Fantastic. Tell me about the coffee van. I think that those moments would have been probably the greatest part of the week, the drive up and the drive back. Who are the characters in the coffee van?
We had a lot of fun. Like for me, Bob Catlin, Bonavoglia, Andy Harper, we these guys are characters. They're intelligent, smart guys, and we just had a lot of fun. Tell stories and just, we used to, Johnny Bonavoglia used to, bring out this CD of the Jerky Boys. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're prank callers, and we just had a bit of fun. And, we used to order food on the way down and, pick up some Indian food when we got to the end of the freeway, and off we went.
Oh, fantastic. So probably an intelligent move by Newcastle, suggesting that you sort of settle in the area. But I mean, I couldn't think of Port Stephens. That's God's country. So congratulations for you for staying up there. So how would you describe, obviously, the difference of now you've been a captain at a club? Obviously, now you mature as a player, and you're in Newcastle to do a job. Okay, so you're not coming up through the ranks. You're there to produce. You're one of the guys in the combi van. Every one of those individuals in that combi van was sort of included specifically to come and do a job for Newcastle. And you had a bunch of Newcastle lads also there that sort of were the bulk of the team. How was that that shift in your mentality now, where you're coming towards the later stages of your career?
No, for me, it was refreshing. It was, to be honest, I probably got stale at a club for 9 years. I needed a challenge for me. The opportunity came. Lee Sterry came knocking, and he said all the right things. And there was an opportunity for me to come in there, and which they had, some good local boys there, which they always do, and the boys that they brought up. And it was an opportunity for me to, just get away from that. I was a Greek boy playing for a Greek club, right?
Yes. And the shirt can become heavy, right?
I carried it for a long time. And I went through a lot of ups and downs, and the Greek boys would hear it first, right?
Yes.
Because we also understood. So, and our family would hear it, and it'd be, in the media, if it was in the media, our family would be, exposed to it. So, not that it took its toll, but it was, for me, it was a release and an opportunity to go.
Just play football, yeah.
And play football. And look, I'm thick-skinned, and I've become thick-skinned. That was, I'd never change anything. So going there was refreshing. The only thing that probably was a little bit down is because of the issue the club had with ownership, and I went into a storm at the time, but it worked out at the end when they went to United, and Ian Crook came with Gary Van Egmond and settled the ship, and we really had some good years there. And the dynamics are a little bit different. The way the supporters there are different to what I was used to. Once they accepted you and they saw that you played for the shirt, regardless you played well or not or made an error, they would back you and turn up to a game, and they were great.
The one person that interesting character that I want to touch on, obviously administrators or owners don't get talked about much. Talk to me about Con Constantine and what he did for that Newcastle team, because he dipped a lot of cash into that football club. So what was he like?
I knew you were going to ask that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when you said owners,
Okay.
Look, Con was great. He had a passion, right? He had money and he had a passion, right? And for me these days, a lot of it's expensive hobby for these guys.
Yes.
That's how I see it, right? And he used to engage with the boys. He loved it. He loved being around the boys. He loved, he loved it. And he was great. He had his moments, like most of us, but overall he was great, and he had a passion, and yeah, he had some obviously other interests in regards to business in the area, and these guys put their money in regardless of what reason, and they have to be respected because when you put your money in there, I mean, you're putting your money in there. You're putting your money where your mouth is, and I don't know what happened after and how it all unraveled because I was long gone by then. But with my time there, I enjoyed playing and him being there because he loved it. He was a passionate guy. He used to travel with us, and he'd be like us. If we lost, we'd be disappointed and upset, and if we won, we'd be celebrating together. So
what were your nicknames on the park? So what did the boys call you?
Tseka.
Now, so
they still call me that.
I was speaking to Andy Roberts about an incident that you had at Auckland. Away at Auckland, you were playing the Kings in New Zealand, and so you've had a head clash, and your head's the size of of an elephant man, right? Yeah. So who did you go headbutt?
Mate, until you just told me and reminded me, I can't remember. So obviously, the whole thing was a blur. I got a headbutt. Yeah, I had. No, I do remember there was a big golf ball on my head. I totally forgot about that, to be honest. But I think I tried to play on. I can't remember.
Yes,
it was on the camera. I remember when the footage came on, and I cringed when I saw it myself because it was a big, healthy ball on my head. But yeah, I totally forgot about that.
And and it's probably it typifies sort of your nature, what you're willing to do on the park for your team and your teammates. This somebody who would want to work hard in midfield to win the ball, fight, but then could get the ball and play. So I touch on that inference, and so Andy Roberts says hello.
I speak to him on the odd occasion. I went and visited him at his store in Newcastle once. I surprised him. So yeah, good lad.
Fantastic. So you play a number of seasons under Crook and Van Egmond from by all reports sort of a good cop, bad cop scenario there at Newcastle. So was that a healthy combination of Crook jumping in there in the middle and wanting to play Sheva and Van Egmond being the disciplinarian?
Oh, mate, I think it was great. Crookie still had ability, and he just, when a coach plays with the players, sometimes, not all the time, right, and gets involved and has a bit of fun, it relaxes the team. And the guy played at a high level, and he did things with the ball that none of us could still do, right? And that sort of, you respect that when your coach knows how to play football, right? You respect that. When a coach doesn't know how to kick a ball, it's very difficult for a senior player to have. Not that you don't respect him, but it's sort of like
becomes academic, right?
Correct. And it becomes like, you can't kick a ball, right? And that's why I'm big on, you got to show your players that you can actually execute what they want because you understand it. Because here, I understand it. Here it is, right? That's a big thing at a high level, because you lose the respect from the players thinking that you don't know how to kick a ball. It makes it difficult, right? Not saying that I would, disrespect them or not, but that's a big thing, and I enjoyed it personally. I enjoyed, and we look forward. We want to try to kick him as well. Well, I did anyway, just to show him that I can. But we had fun and we enjoyed it. And there was, when we did that, it was the times where it was a relaxed time. Players can just enjoy it, and there was other times where he wouldn't get involved, and we just did the business. And Gary was big on discipline, but he had that streak of, again, very similar to, the boss, where he'd be disciplined, but he'd give you a wink and give you a smile, knowing that, hey, be careful, but all good, right? So
yeah, it's a hallmark of a good assistant, right? Where
Yeah.
somebody's saying, "Oh, yeah, the boss is not going to be happy with you," but yeah, it's that nuanced play
you
where
need that.
where the assistant can be the bad guy, but he's also like on your side to give you a go.
But see, I learnt a little bit from that. So when I coach now, I'm more of the bad guy, and my sister's the good guy. So that's reverse, right? But you do need that, right? You do need that. You do need, players need to be able to go somewhere and vent, and I need to have all the information. I don't want it hidden. I don't want things, being put aside. I like to deal with things as they turn up.
Okay, so we're going to go into obviously your time with the national team. Firstly, a question you played at obviously the Olympic side and the under 23s. What's it like when you put on that yellow shirt and stand listening to the national anthem?
It was 93 World Youth Cup. We had a lot of lead-up games. We had a lot of, we had a series with Brazil when we played at Marconi Stadium in Perth and in Adelaide. There was a lot of sort of pre-tournament sort of games and exposure to all this. But I remember walking onto the park against Colombia. Was it Colombia? I think the first game. Colombia in the first game of the World Youth Cup, so the opening ceremony, and it was, football stadium was packed, jam-packed. That for me, and I've got a photo of it, and I'm pretty sure you can see the goosebumps all over me. I think we all did. And it was, again, another surreal moment, a proud moment. And every time I hear a national anthem or I watch a national team, any sport, stand there and sing the national anthem, I get that. I still get that feeling. And not many, I'm fortunate enough to get that opportunity to be in that position, but unless you've been there, you really don't know how it feels. And I enjoy watching national anthems of any Australian sporting team go through it because I get a buzz.
So, it's interesting this sort of build up for you to get to wear the green and gold. At the time, you look back now historically, all big names in that side, but at the time you're just young boys, right? So you're the best young boys in the side. So you've got the likes of in those sides, Kevin Muscat, Craig Moore, and names go on and on and on. But I suppose when you're all very young, right, you're just one of the lads. Is that the feeling that you got in those environments, in those young Socceroos environments?
We were a very close-knit team.
Okay.
We were fortunate enough, and probably things have changed now through finance and that. Our preparation leading up to a World Youth Cup, we did a lot of travelling. We had a lot of tournaments. We went overseas a lot. We were a close-knit team. When we had our downtime, we used to hang together. We used to play cards in the rooms, and there wasn't many times where it wasn't everyone involved. And let me tell you, a lot of people say a lot about Kevin Muscat, but he was one of the best leaders at a young age that I've ever seen. I've probably never seen. He was always leading from off on the park, off the park, from when he was always in the moment, clicked on,
yes,
getting everyone. And
on the same page.
He never had an off day in that regard. Yeah, on the park you have bad days, right?
Yes.
Great guy off the park,
but a true leader, and it goes to show.
Leader, have your back. Take someone who I'd take to war, and I'm a big believer. Yes. I want people around me in football that I will be able to say I will take him to war.
Yes,
Kevin Muscat, I would take to war.
Yes, and he'd probably be the first name on the team sheet if that was the requirement. So that going to war, fantastic on the park, sort of disciplinarian.
Correct.
and I'm sure off the park, he would make sure that everybody was on the straight and narrow and focused.
Correct.
There was apparently a story. You were all sort of in the midst of competition, and you've got overseas clubs probably having a sniff, and you might have opportunities to maybe sign for a decent overseas squad for maybe some good money. And Kevin Muscat had to snap everybody back into line. Tell us that story.
How do you know that one?
Well, I've been around football for a little while.
Excellent. No, I remember it well. We did really well against Colombia. We beat Russia, and we came up against Cameroon, and we were cocky. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of hype, a lot of attention. I got the player of the match, the mastercard player of the match in the first opening game. So, we're young kids, right? We believe the hype. We watch the newspapers. All of a sudden, we're it. And it's a lot of attention for young blokes. And it gets overawed. And Kevin Muscat and the boss were really working hard to make sure we kept the lid on it, which they did really well. We did. We got agents and people talking to us, and this club and this club, and that's not good. And we got done by Cameroon. We needed to win to top the group. We had already qualified, but we needed to win to top and stay in Sydney, which we wanted, but we lost. And on the way off the park, Kevin Muscat just went off. Every single one of us. I remember it clearly. And to be honest, we put our heads down and we agreed. He said, I won't repeat it, but in the
choice words,
in about stop, thinking of this and this, and look what we did, and blah blah blah. And that was before we walked off the park. So there was words exchanged, and Kevin Muscat really reminded us of what was happening, which was beyond his years of someone of his age to be serving us that one.
And this is the hallmarks, I suppose, of a great leader. He then went on to be a very successful national team career, and then do great things, obviously, in his coaching, and he continue to be a great leader of football.
Yep.
So you talk about Les Scheinflug being a disciplinarian, but also there was probably somebody else that you looked upon quite fondly in your time wearing the green and gold, and that was Eddie Thompson. Talk to me about your relationship with Eddie and what he meant to you in your footballing career.
Look, Eddie Thompson was just an easy person to approach. His football philosophy was very simple, simple instructions, very good man management skills. If he wanted something to happen that was aggressive, he'd use the likes of Les Scheinflug or other means. He knew what the players were good at, where they should be, how players complement each other. I played, in the young Socceroos and most of the Olyroos leading up to the Olympic Games. I played every single game, almost every single minute. I was a constant fixture in that centre of the park, whether it was with Carboni or whoever it was for the young Socceroos. So, I knew the coach believed in me. I knew that he trusted me, and that's when I played at my best.
Yes. I suppose every player needs to know that there's somebody, on your side, if for lack of a better word. And I think you definitely gave your 100% when you played, whether it was for club or country. So we thank you for those efforts. So you obviously got to go to the Olympics. It's probably it's one of those things that if you're a runner or a swimmer or a javelin thrower, that's probably the only that's the pinnacle. So looking back now on your career, it's a fantastic thing to go to an Olympics. But how do you see that mix as a footballer, sort of, and that Olympic experience in the holistic view of your footballing career?
Oh, look, going to the Olympics in any sport is a great achievement. And again, it was never a goal that I set out when I was a young bloke to play in the Olympic Games. It just happened. I just progressed and enjoying my football, doing what I did well, trusted, and no pressure. And I eventually got there because I had resilience as well. And just look, being there, I remember the moment I remember fondly was when we were entering the Olympic Village for the first time, and there was a big kerfuffle around someone's walking, turning up, and it was Kathy Freeman.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So here we are, sort of rubbing shoulders on the same team because we're all in the same sort of section of the village, and eating and seeing Michael Klim and whoever else, all these big swimmers and big profile. That for me was unbelievable to be part of that team.
I want to know, who are the boys that used the cafeteria more than they should have on that camp? Were you disciplined, or did?
No, we were disciplined.
Okay.
That was while we played, but our competition started before the opening ceremony. I think the football, I think it still does. It started before because
the group stages and whatnot. Yep.
Yeah. So we missed the opening ceremony because we were in Miami.
So food wasn't a problem in the
Olyroos. Food was a problem after we finished our competition.
Okay.
There was a McDonald's in the village, and it was free of charge.
Okay.
I became a chicken nugget, put it that way.
Okay. So who was the biggest culprit on that Olyroos side who wanted to abuse?
I can't say that.
Yes, you can. Come on.
Me and Goran Lozanovsky would have been.
How does that not surprise me? How does that not quality? All right. Yeah, well, you can always sort of run those extra kilometers afterwards. So you and Loza are in there getting those extra chicken nuggets, all right, burgers or whatnot.
Yeah. Breakfast and dinner.
Breakfast and dinner.
And there was no lunch because we slept through lunch.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Obviously, somebody who went on to have also a fantastic career and probably one of the best crossers of the ball to play for Australia. So fantastic career in itself. So it was probably those extra chicken nuggets that he lined up with you, right? To get that extra kill on the ball. So, Peter, you are now coaching at what I would call a very decent level. Marconi's a fantastic club and put their hand up for the national second division. You've got a boy who plays. What advice, if there's a sort of a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old listening to this, and you had to tell them one thing, something that you learned in your career, for them to words of wisdom, for them to take what you've spent a lifetime and continue to give to our country, what would you say to them?
Look, it's very simple. For me, it's work hard and believe in yourself, and also have resilience, because not everything is rosy. And it's very simple. I mean, I've got 3 boys. I never pushed them to play. They all like to play. The middle one is the one at the moment that is excelling. He's always sort of been the one that had that sort of dream about him to play, not because of his dad. He just loved it. Obviously, his dad playing the game sort of, thrust
It helped, yeah.
into it, definitely. But, he's had some bumpy rides and ups and downs, and he's had to have them. And then once he's gone past them, I've actually told him to reflect and say, do you remember the moment that you thought everything was against you? And I told you, this is what you need to do. And that means if the coach doesn't think you should be playing or whatever it is, you just do what he wants you to do and you'll overcome it. And he's seen that now for himself. And it's made him stronger, and he's going to keep having those bumps. It's resilience. And I've explained to him, I wasn't the best player in the world. I had better players than me not make it because they just mentally gave up. And it's simple as that. So if you want to give up, that's easy, no problem. Off you go and dig some holes plumbing. Or you play the game and work hard. And I don't put pressure on him. I just give him good advice when things aren't going well for him. I just tell him what he needs to do. And it's, someone else in that position as a parent might look for excuses. And I've seen it. It's the coach's fault. They don't know what they're talking about. They can't coach. The club's got no idea. I'm leaving. I'm going somewhere else. That's not the solution.
No,
even if they're right, it's not the solution.
Well, I mean, the other thing is because when you have that mentality, there's another coach on the other side of the fence who has no idea. The club has no idea, and it's not a right fit. And so you end up.
We all don't have any ideas, coaches, according to everyone else, right? But let me tell you, if I see a kid that I don't play, what I want to see from that kid, and he's not playing because he's there because he's good enough. I want to see that you're proving me wrong, that I've left you out. That's how I'm going to get the best out of all my players, right? So do me a favor, show me you want to play, don't tell me. And that's what I say to my son. Show me you want to play, don't tell me. And that's sort of, and at the end of the day, we're talking about my son. If he's not mentally strong enough, he will not go the next level. And that's the test for any footballer.
Great words of wisdom. Tseka, you have been a great steward of Australian football. Thank you for your contribution, both to the clubs that you played for and obviously captained many, many years at Olympic, and you would have given much joy to the Hellenic community of Sydney, and then some great moments of the people in Newcastle where you got to enjoy your football, but also your contribution to Australian football and your continued service as a coach of Marconi. Wish you all the very best.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate it.
Fantastic.
Hey guys, we've come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to our wonderful guest. If you like this type of content and would like to see more, how about you hit the like and subscribe button? And have a fantastic day.